Hi, this is Henry Chamberlain. I'm an artist and writer. Today we're going to be talking about lifetime passes from Abrams ComicArts, and that's the imprint Shirley from Abrams. I'll be talking with the creators, Terry Blas and Claudia Aguirre. I'd like to begin with Terry, if you could just give us a thumbnail of the actual book. Just give us a little introduction.
I keep telling people that it's a long explanation, so I'll do my best. But the book is essentially about a young woman who lives in Southern California. She is obsessed with her local theme park. And because she might not be able to continue to attend, she comes up with a strange plan after overhearing at the park that if a member of your party dies while at the park, that the rest of your party will receive lifetime passes. So her and her awful friends decide to form a fake senior citizen outreach program to take the elderly to the park in hopes that while there, one of them might just die. And
fun.
Yeah. And nothing goes the way that anyone thinks it will. And because Jackie then gets to know some of these elderly people and get to know them as individuals, she begins to consider that what she's doing might not be quite right.
Well, that's a great place to begin. Claudia, can you tell us more about the whole theme of lifetime passes?
Oh, I was Terry didn't tell me like this exact page when he recruited me to this, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to do a story about a theme park with me?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to draw theme parks." And he was like, "Okay, we won't draw the theme park, but do you want to do this particular story like with this pitch?" And I was like, "No, that's more interesting, and I want to do it." I just didn't really want to do roller coasters because they're a pain in the ass. So, so at first I was like, all right. But then the story grew on me. It's really, really good. I
Oh,
always
yeah.
enjoy working with Terry. Like we make a very good team. But this one especially is so full of heart, and like you get into the skin of every single character, and it's so very very well done.
Yeah, I was intrigued by a book that's about a theme park, but it's also, or even more so, about the theme park lifestyle. Like
Yes.
it's not Disney, but people can relate easily to the Disney lifestyle because there's so much that's been said about that. I am going to jump in and show a few images. Now, oops, got ahead of myself there. So this is the book right here.
Mhm.
Lifetime passes. It's a very quirky title. Like people, what is that? And then you get into it, and the main character, there's Jackie Chavez, and that's a really good way to begin, I think. Did you have a challenge in coming up with the characters' looks, or did you have a feeling like, yeah, I know what Jackie's going to look like, Claudia?
No, Terry just told me exactly what he wanted, and I just do what I can to please him. Honestly, he's got like really good ideas, and he's got like this whole visual style already, and this is why we work together on this one because we have more or less the same style to do the story. So I didn't have any issue. He had already like an idea of what he wanted with this one. And he sent me some character designs he had from before he pitched it to me. So I just went ahead and updated the looks, and that's it.
And then here's a wonderful page that gives you a taste of the whole gang. Nikki, her brother Burke, and Daniel, and it just throws you in right away as to, are these people really true friends, or what's going on? It's very intriguing. Is there something you might want to say about that, about this particular page, Terry, as an intro?
Yeah, I think that, there was a scene that delved a little bit more into how Jackie and Nikki became friends when they were younger. And I'm not sure if it's still in the book. I need to reread it.
I don't think it is.
But but essentially I wanted to do something where, you sort of see a character who's fallen in with a friend group, and you definitely wonder like why they are friends. Because I think that sometimes we find ourselves in that position in life. We look around and go like, oh, maybe this isn't a good friend, or just because they're an old friend doesn't mean they're a good one. Maybe a new friend, we often think if we find a new friend that, well, we don't have a history there, we're not going to be as close. And I wanted to sort of break all that down. I made Nikki and Burke cousins because I just, thought it was going to be a good way to add a member to that group that wasn't just necessarily someone else who was a friend. It was a family member of one of them. And Daniel is new to the town and somehow met Nikki. So Jackie mostly has a connection with Nikki since they were kids. And the one thing they all do have in common is that they love the theme park. And that's almost it, kind of.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, one of the characters, Phyllis, who you're coming up to right now, definitely points that out to Jackie.
Yeah.
Yeah, she acts as a wonderful mentor. She's such a rich character. And at first you don't know, is this character really going to blossom? And then, wow, there's lots going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to have a character who was older, that obviously because of what the story's about, but I wanted this character to be somebody who was very intelligent, who had a history. And I think it's part of my favorite part of the process is saying, all right, well, we need an elderly person. I then start asking myself a million questions like, well, why do they live at this elder care facility? Where's their family? Do they have any children? And I think that's how you start to develop a character. Why is she in Southern California in the first place? So for me, it's fun to create those characters and really dig deep into them. And some of my other work also has like elderly people in it and elderly women. And I just never want the elderly characters to come across as like frail or weak or frumpy or any of those things. So I said, this woman's going to be super fashionable and she's going to have it together, and she's going to, be the person that's giving Jackie a lot of advice.
Yeah. And I love the color choices. Is that something that both of you shared? Because there's some colors that are more understated and some, there's like a play with understated and vibrant colors. Is there something you might want to tell us about the color choices, Claudia?
Oh, that's just my usual palette.
Well,
I try to make it as vibrant as possible, so you don't get, you don't miss any detail.
I think
besides, sorry, you go.
Oh no, it's fine. You go.
I was going to say that some characters are way more colorful than others. Jackie is the perfect example. She's like completely dressed in black and she avoids being seen. And Phyllis is completely the opposite. She's like bright colors, a ton of different patterns and jewelry and the pink glasses and stuff like that. Like she likes to be seen.
That's pretty much what I was going to say.
Yes.
I thought just for sake of comparison, here's another project that you guys worked on, Hotel Dare. And there's a lot of some of the similar dynamics. It's a young group, and then there's another generation that's there to say, well, I told you so, or stuff like that.
Yeah, I like the sort of interplay between young people and old people. I saw this clip on The Simpsons, I don't know how long ago, where Grandpa Simpson and Lisa were sitting at a table, and Grandpa says, when you're old, nobody listens to you. And Lisa said, when you're a kid, nobody listens to you. And I thought that was so interesting, because I think a lot of time we think that young people and old people have nothing in common. They're from different generations. They don't understand each other. But, how much do we love like our grandparents and, the elderly people in our lives? So I like the idea that both these groups feel sort of disregarded, but when they come together, they can learn a lot from each other. And I don't know, I just really like doing that.
Yeah. Well, they both have a special wisdom.
Yeah.
And then here's Mama Lupe.
Yeah, I really love Hotel Dare. I'm so proud of it. And I know Claudia and I would love for it to be a series or to continue on, but we've got many ideas for more Hotel Dare.
Oh, well, that's good to know. And this is, of course, is from from Boom Studios or the imprint Kaboom. And then here's a taste of what lies ahead, the supernatural. So it's a
I
beautiful
like
book.
it was described once to us, and I held on to this because I think it's perfect. That, you know, what if you found out that your abuela was basically Doctor Who?
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that's perfect, like jumping between dimensions and histories and worlds, and it's very much like that.
Well, that's all I've got as far as images. I want to make sure that I show the book. And I
Yeah,
want to just take the opportunity to allow you, Terry, and you, Claudia, to maybe tell us a little bit about yourselves. Terry, so you're the illustrator writer from Portland. What can you tell us about your journey, how you got to where you are?
I mean, I moved to Portland, Oregon, and then went to art school out here. I have an illustration degree, and that's what I started doing in comics. Was I started with some covers and a little bit of interior work. Drawing comics is so intense; it takes a long time, and when you draw comics, you have to be able to draw everything. And I felt like I knew what my limitations were in terms of drawing, and I thought I would give writing a try. So I've been working professionally as a writer now for almost, I think, 8 years or so. And I just really enjoy it. And I love working with other people and with other artists. And yeah, a lot of my work kind of skews, I think, young adult. But I have biographical work. A book I wrote about Cesar Chavez coming out in January. Lifetime Passes will be out in this, November. And so I've just been really fortunate to be able to do different kinds of work for different companies. I wrote Reptile for Marvel, and I believe that trade is coming out in December. So that's sort of what I enjoy doing, is writing young characters and old characters and mixing the two together. And a lot of my work just heavily features members of the queer community, and members of the Latinx community, because that's really important for me, for people in those groups and people like me and Claudia to be able to see ourselves represented in these stories that often, don't get represented. So that's my work.
That's a great opportunity for me to mention that this is Abrams, but the imprint is Shirley, which has stories that have a LGBTQ sensibility or viewpoint. Somehow they tie that in. I wanted to ask you, Claudia, if you could tell us about whatever you might want to share about your growing up in Mexico, your work. Do you go to LA, or do you always work in Mexico, or maybe to talk to us about Boudica Comics, whatever you like.
I wanted to be an animator at first. I wanted to do cartoons, and since there wasn't back in the 90s and back in the 2000s, there wasn't any place where I could study or gain any knowledge to be an animator or do anything that I wanted to do. So suddenly life brought me into comics. Like, I just came here stumbling. And when I met my best friend Eva, we made this little imprint that's called Boudica Comics. We started doing our own comics, and we started traveling after that. And we brought our comics to San Diego Comic-Con, showed them around, and then we suddenly got a job. Our first big job was Kim and Kim, with Magdalene Brisacchio, and it was nominated for an Eisner Award and a GLAAD Award. And after that, we've been consistently getting called into the industry and being included in a lot of things. And I'm really happy because I never expected to be in a place where I'm so accepted. It's insane. I'm really happy to be here and to have met Terry, and that we have worked together and we formed a friendship. And this is the kind of stuff I never thought possible, being here. I gotta take the internet as it is, because this is how I got all the things I have are because of the internet and how I met people through it. Otherwise, I don't know, I might have stayed as a graphic designer.
Oh, that's very interesting. Terry, maybe we'll alternate a little bit, go back and forth. Tell us a little bit about how you and Claudia got together as a partner, creative partnership.
I believe that we met, it's been a while now, but I believe that we met because Steve Lieber, who I am a member of Helioscope with, met Claudia at a convention.
2015.
Yes, and then came back to Portland and said, you have to look at this artist's artwork, you have to contact them, you should work with them.
Yes.
And I reached out to Claudia, and I think from then we just started working together. And
yeah, you pitched me a hotel there, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like something I would like to do. And then I didn't hear from you for like a year. And then suddenly Whitney from Boom Studios called me, and she was like, hey, Terry said he wanted to do a comic with you. And I was like, oh yeah, Terry, of course.
Sometimes that's how comics work, I guess.
Yep, comics work in mysterious ways.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm super grateful. I love everything Claudia does, and now we speak all the time. And I'm just super happy that I have more than one book with Claudia.
Yes, me too. I love them.
I think if everybody should know that if they get the hardcover version of the book of Lifetime Passes, they get this really cool map of the whole park that Claudia drew. And I love it. And it's one of my favorite things about the presentation of the book. So
yeah, mine too. I suffered a lot. You should buy that one.
Wait, when you showed the map, I said, yeah, and it showed my face. So let me show the map again.
Yeah, it's super cool.
And then
I think it allows the reader to, read through the book. And then if they feel like it, they can look at this map and get a feeling for where they are at the park in every scene. You can see things in this map and rides and attractions that the characters go through. So it's really, it rewards more than one look at the map. So.
Well, yeah, I can definitely feel that from this book, that it's something that's been made with love. And when things are made with love, usually there's a lot more going on. Like you feel satisfied, and you think, I'm going to read this again because there's so much fun stuff. And everybody knows about Portland, or at least I feel like everybody knows about Portland in the comic scene. And I don't know if we want to keep that a secret or not, but there's so much going on in Portland. It's crazy.
I don't know how much of a secret it is that a place that rains 6 months out of the year would be conducive to people sitting inside and drawing and writing all day. So I think that might be one reason why so many of us are here. But I mean, Dark Horse Comics and Oni Press and Image are all located in Portland. So a lot of editors and a lot of artists and people who work in the comics industry do live here. And I also think it's not too far to Seattle for a big Emerald City Comic Con. It's not too far from Los Angeles if there's things happening there. So I think it's a good place to be if you're working in comics, and it's definitely a good place to get to know people who work in that industry.
Well, I'm in Seattle. I didn't mention that, but I get out to Portland whenever I can, and it's just an amazing ecosystem. I love the food, the scene, everything.
Yeah, I like the town. It's really good.
Claudia, could you maybe give us some taste of Mexico City and maybe something about the comics?
I don't live in Mexico City. I don't live in Mexico City. I don't know.
Mexico City would be too much, but where you are, from your vantage point, what can you tell us?
I'm a little bit north in Monterrey. It's a valley, and there's mountains around, and then it's there's a lot of people, but like you have these tiny communities that just pop every once in a while on convention season, and then you don't see them the whole year, but then there's a convention and everyone's out and everyone's crazy about meeting and stuff, like exactly how Terry described. People just cramped in rooms for 6 months a year. It's exactly like that because it's hot as hell and no one wants to be out. Like, we don't want to be out. It's just the AC all day long. We have a very big community of artists and artists who do this as a hobby or to sell little keychains or fun stuff. And some of us are comic book artists who do like bigger comics, but there's like this huge scene it wasn't as big as it is now when I came into it, but it's a huge scene and it's mostly like creator owned. So it's like you could call it like a scene. I don't know. It's really cool. It's really big, and there's a lot of people participating in it. I've been told that after the pandemic, more or less by this time, there's been like a shift in people like who are interested in comics, and suddenly there's a lot more people who weren't interested in it, and it's only getting bigger. Like there's more people who are interested in drawing and creating. So it's constantly growing and becoming something bigger than it was before. I don't know how to describe it. It's like you're watching something being born and grow before your eyes, because when I came into the scene, it was like the tiniest thing, like the same four people every single convention, and now it's huge. It's incredible to see this much talent in one place. There's like literally one convention a year, and there's a place where you can see how important and how big all of these communities are. It's fantastic.
Well, that's a nice little picture for us. I wanted to maybe round out things by making sure if there's anything you want to bring up, this is your chance. And maybe we could talk about comics influences a little bit for fun. Terry, could you maybe share a little bit about the comics that you love, the ones you love growing up, or stuff going on now? Or...
Yeah. Growing up, I liked a bunch of superhero comics. I liked the X-Men mostly and whatnot. But Bone by Jeff Smith was really influential to me. I loved all of those books. I devoured them. But yeah, I really responded well to that. And then the work of Rumiko Takahashi, who did like Ranma One Half,
Yes.
which is my favorite manga of all time. Claudia and I share that in common as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just a lot of work that was cartoony. I say that as like sort of like Bone stuff, and then also superhero comic-y. Right now, I'm reading through several different things, but one thing that I'm enjoying is the Champions title from Marvel, which is about a young group of teens. So that's a recurring thing with me. But I'm also just started reading a book called Salt Magic, which is great. And yeah, that's sort of where I think a lot of my influences come from, is Bone and superhero stuff. In terms of like my young adult graphic novels, I feel like story-wise, a lot of things I do are influenced by a lot of TV shows I watched. One of them would be like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, just because that show blended, comedy and horror and action, and it was several things all at once and not just content to be one genre. So I like to mix stuff up a little bit like that too. I can't just do something like a book about a happy theme park. I have to be like, but what if these kids are hoping that someone dies? Or my first book, which is Deadweight, was just about a weight loss camp, and I was like, but what about a murder mystery that happens there? What if I write in a murder? So I like to mix things like that quite a bit.
Yep.
Well, I want to offer the same to you, Claudia. What can you tell us about comics growing up? Maybe Mexican comics in particular, whatever you like.
I was into manga a lot when I was a tween. As Terry said, I was super into whatever Rumiko Takahashi did, because she was funny and she's hilarious. Like you read her comics and it's something else. Like the comedic pacing is absolutely genius. It's something else. She's always been like one of my biggest influences. And then I just went with manga for a long time because I didn't really care for superheroes. I also was poor, so I couldn't buy a book a month. Like it was impossible. So what I did was watch anime on the TV, and that's it. And for a while, I tried to get Rumiko Takahashi's work as manga, and we had this sort of manga-ish. What they did was separate every single chapter in 22 pages and just sell it like that, like a comic book. So I bought those. It was terrible, but it was the only way to read manga back then. And then I don't know, I just couldn't afford it, to say the least. So I just watched a lot of cartoons and then caught up with all the things I missed when I was an adult and I could get money to do whatever I wanted. So that's how I grew up with cartoons.
Yeah, that makes sense. There was one cartoonist I interviewed recently, and he said, well, and I said, I agree with you so much, because sometimes you don't remember the names or the most famous comics, you haven't actually read them. But he said, well, honestly, what I love more than anything is animation. So a lot of his influences are animation. But I was just curious about Mexican comics, because I read somewhere, because I always thought French comics, then Japanese comics, and then American comics as far as the readership. But I read somewhere that Mexican readership is so big that it would be like Japanese and Mexican are at the top, and then French. Are there any Mexican characters that come to mind from?
Not really. If anything, they're from the 50s. Like there isn't like a big. There's a lot of readership and there's a lot of demand, but there's not a big national publisher of cartoonists or whatever they want. It's like they have to sell their work somewhere else and then get it translated and then retranslated back into Mexico. Because back then we had a big industry and you could get a ton of readers because you could sell them in, I don't know, magazine stores, stuff like that. But currently what's being read is a lot of manga because we have manga publishers in Mexico that are translating constantly. So people are buying that. There's Marvel, there's DC, there's like, they're bringing stuff from outside, but we are not producing anything other than creator-owned work.
Okay.
And that has a much less readership than, gigantic mega corporations. It's still like super popular. Like people adore that. People love web comics because they're free, so they read whatever. There's a lot of Webtoon Latin America stuff going on, and a lot of my friends are participating in them. I love it. I read them. I read their comics. Like, of course, I'm gonna read them, but it's still like super young. I don't know how to describe it. The readership is there, the demand is there, but how do you get it to the people? Like Webtoon is doing it, but there's no. I don't see any publisher taking a chance on Mexican cartoonists.
Interesting. Well, from your experience with Boudica Comics, is it it's not only in Spanish, or don't you have in different translations, English?
We have translations, yes. But we ran out of those like 10 years ago. We haven't done anything together in a while because we got so busy with comics. Suddenly happened. Like we made our dream come true, so we didn't have time to do our own stuff for a while. The last thing we did was Mavi 2015, and that was it. Like before we started like going into mainstream comics with Kim and Kim. It was a year before that.
Okay, well that all makes sense. That's all for the better. Time to move on to the big leagues, and it
doesn't mean that I'm not going to do it. I just don't have the time to do creator-owned projects more than the other, because it's all about time. Like time is money.
Yeah. Well, I kind of caught myself there. I was saying, hey, it's time to move on to the big leagues, but that's part of it. You also wanted to create your own. It's kind of, you try to balance it. And
not really. Big leagues is something completely subjective to each and every one of us.
Right.
Terry has done stuff for Marvel, and that's the big leagues for people in almost every circle except us, because we don't really see it the way others see it. Like it's something that's very fulfilling for others is not as fulfilling for us, and vice versa. Big leagues is just getting paid to do what you want to do, and that's it.
Well, yeah, well said. Well, I'll leave that as the final word for you, Claudia. Is there anything else you might want to say, Terry? Or does that really say it all right there?
I think that says it all. If you're making books that you're proud of and that you love and you're getting paid well to do it, then that's, I think, a great definition of happiness to me.
Okay. Well, thanks to both of you. And the book, Lifetime Passes, and it'll be out later this month. I'll have the exact date on the video. But yeah, this has been a pleasure. Thanks so much, guys, for doing this.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. It was great.
Okay, so we're done. Have a great day, and I'll let you know when the video goes up.
Yes,
Sounds
thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.